I get asked all the time by government contractors, should I submit sources sought notice responses? Should I respond to RFIs and to sources sought? And yes, absolutely. The answer is absolutely you should. And government contractors should respond to sources sought, to RFIs. As long as they're in the right place, right, into your sweet spot, your core competency, then you should be responding to it. And I'll talk more about that as we go into training. But sources sought responses are the very best way to meet federal buyers, contracting officers, program office personnel, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. But think about who sees it. You write a response, it goes to the government. It goes to the very people you're probably trying to get in and have a meeting with. And if you couldn't have gotten that meeting, your RFI response, your sources sought response got the meeting for you by having a captive audience who's going to read it, right? And so yes, you absolutely should respond to sources sought that are in your sweet spot. We'll talk about that, right? But there are mistakes government contractors make when dealing with sources sought or when submitting RFI responses, et cetera. And that's what I want to talk about today. So I'm going to cover down on the 3 mistakes. And this is the last time I'm going to say it in a negative way. As I go through my training, I'm going to flip it over to what we should be doing, not what we shouldn't be doing kind of thing. But so the 3 mistakes are not having a rapid response process in place. If I see a sources sought I want to respond to, I want to be able to get to that right away. And so I need to have a process in place that allows me to respond pretty quickly. The second thing is not making those responses your own. Too many of us just fire back whatever the government asks for, and that's it. We don't think about making this our own document. So I'm going to dive into that. And the third mistake is not following up after we submit an RFI or a sources sought response. And we kind of just let it falter. And so I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about what you can do as we wrap up today's training. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner after I got out of the Army. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And that's what I want for your company. That's what I want for your RFI responses. That is, you'll start having repeatable, predictable results. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to my newsletter. This is where I put a lot of information out. I put out an article this morning about these mistakes that I'm talking about. And when I'm done today's training, I'll take the video and put it in there as well. And so if you ever miss some of the content I put out, you'll be able to find it through the Government Contracting Success newsletter. So definitely subscribe to that. Last thing is, we had about 150 people register for training today. Thank you very much. First off, when you do it, it's you saying thank you to us. We really appreciate you registering because when you do that, LinkedIn pushes the word out to more people, letting them know. And our mission is to help as many small businesses across the entire country. All right, let's dive into putting a rapid response in place. So when I say a rapid response process in place, what I really mean is your ability to respond quickly to a sources sought that you see. You know, hopefully you have the full 15 days or whatever it is that the government might give us, but you should be able to write a response within 3 days. If you're writing to what your company does best and you have reusable material, then you'll be able to respond really fast. And so the first thing that you need to have in place in order to really have a good rapid response process is your clear, focused offer. What do you sell? And that means niching down to the smallest thing you can do. For companies in construction, customers of ours went all the way down to elevators. Somebody else who's in cybersecurity went all the way down to zero trust architecture. When you have this, you can really respond quickly because you can see an opportunity and know it might be a fit for you. And understanding whether it's a fit for you goes into this second bullet about defining your criteria for a slam dunk opportunity. In order to be able to respond quickly to an RFI or sources sought, you need to be able to make sure junk RFIs or sources sought, or ones that are not applicable to your company, are not getting into your pipeline, not getting onto your writing to-do list, right? Don't let the bad opportunities get in there because you're like, let me respond. It's not about responding to hundreds. It's about responding to the right ones, right? And so if you have a defined criteria for what a slam dunk opportunity is, and a slam dunk opportunity is ones that pretty much you think you're guaranteed to win. Of course, you might have competition with other people who are also excellent, But it's the difference between going after something you absolutely think you could win because you have experience and skills, et cetera, compared to going, well, I think we could respond to this. Well, that's not a slam dunk. Maybe you get on base, but you're not going to sit there and, oh, I just mixed my metaphors, didn't I, from baseball to basketball, or basketball to baseball. But you get my point, right? Make sure you're swinging only at the opportunities that are absolutely going to be the ones you can do. Man, I don't know what's going on with today. I'm completely mixing my sports metaphors. Okay, so the third thing you want to have in place for a rapid response process is to have template documents in place, right? And so examples of template documents are about your company. If you have this section about us, you don't want to be writing that new every time you write an RFI response. And so if you have a page that's going to be about your company, it should be done. You might tweak 2 or 3 words, but that's like a 5-minute task. You should not worry about writing your about section on your company, nor about things like your technical approach. What's your approach to quality, or what's your approach to staffing? Those kind of things you should pull out of a repository and be able to put right in. And I don't mean pull out of another RFI response. That's bad practice, right? Good practice is to write an RFI response, find out what you like in there and go, that's really good. Let me use that again, and put it over in a repository so it's nice, clean text that's easy to move around. So the second one there is about your non-technical approaches. And the third one is about your technical approaches. And so when I was doing my last company, we were a SharePoint company. And let's say I was writing to a SharePoint migration. Well, I had solid language and pages about how we dealt with migrations. We would talk about how we would come in and we would do a gap analysis on all your users and all the sites, and we would rate them in 3 complexity levels and blah, 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 blah. Well, I don't have to say that every single time I write a proposal. I don't have to think it every time I write a response to a sources sought or an RFI. If I write it and I have it good and I refine it over several different times, I put it in that center of excellence. We call it intellectual property, et cetera. But you want to think about when you're doing these responses, sometimes you have less pages than, and other times you have 10, 25 pages or something. So as you mature the template material, the template documents, think about having the answer to what's your technical approach to this, and it can be answered in a paragraph or like a half a page. And then another one's in a page. Another one, you might have a couple of pages. That example I just used on my last company, I could do 3 different write-ups. And so in my repository of reusable material, I would sit there and say, what's the answer to migration? Well, how much room do I got? You got a paragraph. Okay, here it is. Or you've got a page. All right, here this is. And so I would have that. And then the other one there on template documents, I talk about graphics. When I describe migrations in SharePoint that I used to do, I could have a graphic that's all I gave you. And it would pretty much tell the story. We do this, and this is kind of the result. It takes time to build this material, right? Don't think that you're doing anything wrong if you don't have this in place. What I want you to do is start thinking to yourself that I need to put it in place, and I could put it in slowly over the next few months or longer if it takes that to write responses, find what I like, take it out, make it reusable, right? Don't try to just sit down and write something for the sake of writing it. Write a response to an RFI or a sources sought, and then in there, if you find stuff you like, you go, hey, we wrote that really well. Pull that out and put it down. But be patient for all of this to come together. The second or last thing I want you to just remember on the rapid response is to write less, write better, write fit. Write less means don't sit there and try to respond to every sources sought out there. Just write to your slam dunk opportunities. Write better means the quality. Keep improving it. You don't have to make it perfect on the first shot. Nothing I've ever done is perfect, but it's certainly not perfect in the first time, right? And so just keep writing. Every time you write a response, you're going to get better at something, and you have it as a reusable material and you can move it forward. So write better responses back that really talk about what you do. And then the last thing is write fit. Always make sure you're going after RFIs and sources sought that are a right fit with your clear, focused offer. Hey, by the way, if you're writing RFIs right now, tell me. I'm really curious if you're in the middle of writing RFIs right now and how this aligns to what you're doing. But just put RFIs now if you're writing RFIs now. I'd love to know who's writing RFIs. Okay, so now let's talk about making responses your own. I think this is one of my biggest, if I had a priority list, this would be the very top of my list for RFI and RFP, or excuse me, RFI and sources sought responses. One thing to keep in mind as I talk and as I do training, I'm not here to speak on behalf of the government. I don't work with the government, right? I'm a small business owner who came out and started teaching it after I had my companies. And so I teach you from a sales perspective, a sales professional perspective. I work with tons of agencies, hundreds and thousands of buyers through my career. That's different than a contracting officer who might be in a contracting shop and they have their stuff. Even if they've done $1 billion, they're still them and their process. They might expand into their shop of 4 or 5 people or 10 or 20 people. But as you begin to think about it, remember that there's over 400,000 acquisition personnel in the government alone. And then when you tack on program office type buyers, you're talking about 1 million buyers out there at least. And so, that volume of people who are potentially looking at what you're doing, you really want to take the advice when you're coming in and trying to drive stuff forward from a sales perspective. How do you get in and shape an opportunity? And that's my first bullet, is that an RFI response and a sources sought response it's a sales document. It is not some compliance exercise for the government. That's what it is for the government. For them, we send this out to industry. Let's see what responses we get, right? Maybe we get a better buyer who actually is engaged. But for us, we want to treat it as a sales document, meaning when I send it in, I don't want to just respond. I want that document selling for me, building relationships for me, introducing me to other people without me ever being there because my document is so well written. And so you want to think of it always as a sales document. When you write an RFP proposal, that's absolutely what you should be thinking about, right? You're writing a sales document in order to win that contract. And you want to do the same thing in RFI and sources sought responses. The next thing is don't let it be just this compliance exercise. As you're out there writing responses to sources sought, of course you need to be compliant, right? You need to be compliant and answer the contracting officer or the government buyer's questions. They're going to ask you specific questions. They're going to ask you for specific information. If you leave it out, they're going to sit there and wonder why you're leaving it out. So there is a level of compliance you need to do, but that's like the 20% of this response. 80% needs to be that sales side of the document. You're trying to emphasize your strengths. You're trying to push your strengths. If they have, I have a customer who this week we're working on an RFI together, and there's about 10 different task areas that the government's asking about. They're asking for questions. And so in here, we need to emphasize our strengths on the ones that we have. This particular RFI, it has some OCONUS, and we really don't have as much strength on there. So you want to minimize your weaknesses. And the way we might minimize something like that is, we have teaming partners who we will add to our team to offset the OCONUS outside of the continental United States. OCONUS work. We have people who are in. And so when you're writing a response, you want to sit there and make sure you're showcasing what you can do. When I write a response based on my last company for SharePoint, I'm really trying to get them to think about things that aren't even being asked. If they ask me about this, I say, well, yes, here that is. Here's that compliance set of answers. But also you should think about this. You should be measuring us on this. And I write this in a way, if you see this last bullet, right, or second to last bullet, where I say, right to win. One of the things that government contractors must do is put in their head that sources sought and RFIs should be treated like RFPs. I know people sit there and sometimes say, oh, it's a burden you put on a small business. I'm like, it's an opportunity. We have this opportunity to knock it out of the park so well in the RFI or the or the sources sought response that the government invites us in, right? That the government sets it aside in the direction that we want. But if the government invites us in, even just to have a conversation, wow, your response was so impressive. We really wanted to pull some threads on it, because they literally are in the market research phase. If you're not aware of this, the market research phase allows the government to engage with industry, to have conversations. Every contracting shop and every agency is a little different on what they do, but they're allowed to have these conversations. And so when you write a response and when you write to win, they're going to feel it. They're going to feel the love. They're going to feel that you care enough, that you want this work, that you're demonstrating how you're going to come in and help them with this requirement and their mission, right? We're not just going to be able to help you with this requirement, but we understand how this requirement ties to your broader mission. And that all is getting put into the RFI. By the way, when you have reusable material, this gets easier and easier and easier to do when you stay in your sweet spot, in your core competency. The last thing I like to put here is that when I write a response, I'm also trying to win something else. So, when I'm right now, the response one of my customers is working on is related to EEO investigations. So, equal opportunity employment. And inside of there, one of the things we will probably mention is that, like you have 10 pages, let's say, take 2 pages, write the whole response in 8 pages and use 2 pages to try to showcase a little more of what you can do. You want to align it to this baseline. And so for my customer, they could talk about other discriminatory issues that might happen in an agency that my customer could support. And so I'm encouraging them to put that in, because when the response comes into a sources sought or an RFI notice, the government's going to read it. As long as it's compliant and it looks good, they're going to read it. The program office, the contract office, et cetera. And you want that document communicating to them that, hey, if we're not a fit for this, consider us for these other things. You want them to go, well, you're not a fit for this one, but you are for that. Let's bring them back in for that. Let's talk to them about that. Let's make sure we get them to respond to the next one as well as this one. Okay, hey, really quick, before I go into the last slide, talking about what to do after you submit it. If you're looking to accelerate your business development skills, if you want to get in the door more with agencies, if you're trying to have more meetings, more relationships in particular, and to hear about more opportunities, go check out govconchamber.com on my site. You can learn about our BD Masterclass. It's a 2024 version out there. Love to have you join us. Okay, so let's wrap up this training with the next couple of slides around the follow-up. What do you do after you submit a response to an RFI or a sources sought? Okay, so the first thing I wanted us to just kind of acknowledge for a second, a baseline of where we're at. I really want you to ask yourself, just think about this. Don't put it in the chat or anything, but think to yourself, are you writing a lot of RFI responses and sources sought responses? Are you just churning them out the door and it's a numbers game at the high level for you? Are you one of those people who maybe are firing and forgetting, right? You're sending a response in, you might do one call and then that's it, right? You don't really do anything with it. You just kind of wait till the government comes back and miraculously hands you an RFP, right? Or too many of us are kind of a little bit more. We think we're doing follow-up, but we're really not. Like I've asked customers, or not just customers, but people I talk to, and they're like, oh, we respond a lot, or we follow up a lot. Well, what's a lot mean to you? Well, we reached out and we followed up, asked them a question this week, and then we asked them a couple times. So we probably asked them 3 or 4 times and never heard back, so we walked away. Well, that's not following up. Of course, it's following up, but it's not following up enough, right? And I really want you to sit there and understand that if you want an RFI, you're going to have to do more than that. Because in reality, if you don't follow up, you're just writing a bunch of RFIs and throwing them over there. You're just doing an exercise that's going into a black hole that's just wasting your time, and it's not going to get you the results that you want. Before I give you some tips on how to follow up, I just want us to agree on a couple of basic things, right? Don't write RFI responses or sources sought responses unless it's related to your core competency. I talked about that clear, focused offer, that slam dunk opportunity. That's what we mean by core competency. Only write to sources sought and RFI notices that are in your swim lane, your core competency. The second thing is don't write a response unless you're going to pursue it, unless you're going to pursue that opportunity. A lot of people throw it out and hope the government miraculously goes, oh, I'm just going to pick them and throw them the opportunity. Even if that happens, that's the same as trying to buy a lottery ticket, right? That's not a plan, or at least it's not a good plan, right? Writing a ton of responses and just hoping the government comes back to you on one of them and buys, that's not it. You want to write responses only for opportunities you plan on pursuing. I really like this sources sought opportunity requirement, right? I'm going to respond to it. I'm going to pursue it. I'm going to chase it like an opportunity. This is capture, right? Capture is about chasing an opportunity down for the win. It's about shaping an opportunity. And so you want to pursue it relentlessly. If you're writing a response to the government's sources sought notice, then pursue it relentlessly. Go after it. And I'll tell you in the next slide how to do that. So one of the first steps you do, though, is make sure you put it in your pipeline. And I don't care if you're using a spreadsheet right now or a SharePoint-based tool like this, the pipeline that we create for our customers in SharePoint, or you're doing some fancy tool, put it in your pipeline. Get it created and then execute on capture tasks, meaning you have it in your pipeline, you start learning more about that opportunity. You get in and try to have more meetings, and you don't take no when the government says, well, we'll get back to you. I don't think so. I'm gonna come in every door and window I can get to get there, right? You're not being unprofessional, but you're being relentless. You want to get meetings with anyone who can support your pursuit. You want to go after this opportunity, so you want to get meetings, and here's some of the people you can get meetings with, and we'll talk about this in a second. But when you submit a response, basically the government gets it and they're going to look at it, right? And so I want you to build this mind map, if you will. I do this inside of a SharePoint-based pipeline, but you can build it like on the whiteboard. You just do a circle and you're trying to understand everybody. When you submit an RFI response, often people haven't really done much research at all about that opportunity, which is fine. It's not the end of the world. As long as you know the opportunity is in your sweet spot, you can do capture to get the rest of the information. But as soon as you submit it, you want to build an org chart and understand, here's this requirement or opportunity, which contract office is doing the work. For example, at Department of Commerce, not all the bureaus have their own contracting shops, and they use different bureaus. And so the program office would be in one bureau or agency within the Department of Commerce, and somebody else is the contracting shop. Understanding that information is important. And understanding the OSDB, or in the military, the Office of Small Business Professionals. I think that's what it stands for, or Small Business Programs. Anyways, you want to find out who those people are. You want to find first the organization, then you begin to pursue the people. So in the contracting office, you want to find out who the contracting officer is, the contract specialist. What I talk to people about in capture is you can tell when your capture efforts are paying off, when you're truly increasing the likelihood of you winning, when you have people's names, numbers, and emails. If you can't tell me who the contract officer is and or the specialist, right? But if you can't tell me who the contract officer is, then as far as I'm concerned, you really don't know anything about the opportunity. So when you submit a response, you want to start finding that information. If you're lucky, it's somebody who's on the point of contact that you just sent it to, but otherwise you can find that person and go look up their colleagues. In an agency, I like to find the head of contracting activity. These are HCAs, and you can go into their website and you find out, okay, this is the contract shop it's coming out of. Here's the head of contracting activity. This is really important to me because if I want to find more information out about this opportunity, then I just responded to a sources sought notice, but the contracting officer is not getting back to me, I'm going to their boss. It's not my problem that they're not responding to me. If I can't get hold of them and I try for a couple of weeks or whatever, I'm just going to go to the top and say, hey, I don't mean to be a pest. I was just really trying to find out about this opportunity. I was going here. I don't know if maybe they've been TDY'd somewhere, like assigned somewhere else. You do it really professional, real soft, but you want to know who is the supervisor of that contracting officer, who's the head of contracting activity. And so there's also branch chief, division chief. This is extra information. When I say pursue relentlessly, I mean really go after it hard. And you can do the same thing in the program office. For many people, we submit sources sought notices or responses, and we don't often know much about the program office. Well, if you submit it, it means you're going to go after it. So go learn in the program office. First thing you want to do is who is the program, or what is the program office, right? And then who are the leaders in there? You want to begin to figure these people out. You want to get in and talk to them. So if you're on audio, I'll just tell you, you want to be finding the leaders of the IT department, for example, or the program executive office, if that's who you're going after. You want to look for division chiefs, project managers, program managers, contract officer representatives who are doing the work, right? If this is a recompete on something that's out there, how do you go track down the core? Is this information easy to get? Not always, but if you go pursue it relentlessly, your competitors are not. You're increasing your likelihood of winning. And then OSDB and small business shops, you want to just, really the OSDB is not going to help you much unless you're getting no traction with anybody else, but it's nice to know who they are. But you do want to align a small business professional's name to every opportunity in your pipeline. It's just vital because that person perhaps can help you get in the door. And then there's somebody called the Procurement Center representative out of the SBA. They have oversight over agencies, building a relationship with these people, understanding on every opportunity, every single opportunity, who's the PCR for this opportunity. And it's not that hard because some of these PCRs cover a huge group of agencies. And so you can find that information and pursue them. Here's what I want you to remember from today's training. I know it's a fire hose, but the first thing is create a rapid response process. Take your time, right? One of the easiest ways to build this rapid response process is incrementally as you respond to sources sought and RFIs. The second thing is make sure those responses are yours, not just a compliance exercise, but you're trying to make it compelling. You want to write for the win. You want to impress those readers on the government side so they look at it, and even if they don't choose you for this one, they go, wow, I'd love to get this company in to talk to them more. And the third thing I want you to remember is just pursue the opportunities that you respond to as a sources sought or an RFI. Pursue those relentlessly. This is the difference between being proactive and reactive to the success that you want to have happen to your company. So hopefully this all makes sense. Remember, check out govconchamber.com to learn more about how we can help you. Otherwise, just for everybody, remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.